Why don't you go home? Why don't you go home? The metals come over from Asia in that ship that docked at Southampton. So now you can go and finish the works on the Coleman Road stand that are designed to get your wheelchair supporters in out the wind and the rain. Actually, quite commendable. Why don't you go home? That's the horrible, brutal, yet quite tuneful and catchy chant that's going to be hurled into the faces of poor, innocent Rangers fans by intimidating Queen's Park hooligans as we try to leave the National Stadium, Hampden, after it's accommodated us for, 4, 5 home games, and I'm doing the air quotes, home games in this coming season. Maybe all the home games we've got in August, maybe all the home games we've got in August, September, maybe it'll go into October, who knows. But it's official, there's been an official announcement. Our acting CEO and our chairman, Mr. John Bennett, has released a full statement today on where Rangers will be playing until we manage to get Ibrox fully ready. I'll just read that statement out to you, it's quite important. I'll just bear with me. It's open inverted commas, supporter update, close inverted commas. So that's that full statement there. Quite a lot of information in that. That's as it was produced on the Rangers Twitter account. I think, and I might have mentioned this in previous pods, it's quite interesting how you can get all the information you require about the legend that is John Bomber Brown doing tours of Ibrox and taking you around at the Rangers Museum in New Edmiston House. You can get all the information you need about that on a tweet, just on the tweet on the Rangers Twitter account. They can get everything you need to know about, you know, people playing for their country during the Euros, Rangers women's team players getting capped for Scotland, where the actual Rangers team are playing closed door friendlies against Standard Liège, players that were signing, stuff like that. Where to get the new strip? What's one of the new strips you can get? You can get all the information you need about that onto one tweet. But the tweets that have got the least amount of information, the least words on them, and it's 2 words. There's an I information icon, letter I information icon, and then it says supporter update. Now you then click on the picture of the Bluebell Gates, and it takes you into a massive, massive statement on the Rangers website. It's good 3, 4 sentences in that, maybe a couple of paragraphs actually. It's like War and Peace. It's like something Tolstoy would write if he was giving you information on where you supporter update. Quite a vital update is where your team's going to play. The team that you have already paid. If you're a season ticket holder, as most of us are, you've paid your money up front to watch your team as a supporter. Quite important to know where they're going to be playing in those games that you've already paid for. And that's not the case, of course, with friendlies and European games. But aye, so supporter update, 2 words on your Twitter. It's like a dirty secret. Like everybody knows about it. Everybody knows we don't know where we're going to be playing. Everybody knows we don't know, and yet there's this whole thing about supporter update. It's 2 words. That's all. That's all the information you get. Let's just don't post that in the Twitter site. Don't. And John Bennett has apologised. Fans want him to apologise, want to come forth, make a public statement. And I know people have been saying to me, a bit of feedback to the pod here, and you see it online, social media, etc. Well, maybe to make an actual statement until we know exactly what's happening could cause more trouble. You know, if you say as Rangers chairman, it could be Hampden, could be Murrayfield, people might start pick it up the wrong way. They might hear the wrong thing, might hear what they want to hear, only read a certain bit of it, hear it second hand, and start planning to go to Murrayfield. And next thing you know, you've arranged to play at the round ball National Stadium as opposed to the oval ball one, and they want recompense. And sometimes keeping things close to your chest until you know what the final arrangements are is good. But I think we needed to hear a bit more, and it's been heard. It's been said. I'm talking to you on Thursday, the 11th of July, just building my bonfire out the back, ready to get going tomorrow. But it's, at this point in time, in the evening of Thursday, the 11th of July, the chairman has said it looks like they're into final rounds of negotiations with the SFA and the SPFL, who he's bigging up, saying they've been very helpful about getting Hampden. And the reason I have this image in my head of Queen's Park supporters having a go at it is it's quite complicated, it's quite mad, it's like a fever dream, an anxiety dream, and that's what it's been like trying to find out where Rangers are going to be playing next season. I went to see Queen's Park playing Cowdenbeath, my mate and I, at the end of 1999-2000 season. I am old. And I don't know what Rangers were playing on the Sunday or whatever, but I just remember I was looking at, I think it'd be a newspaper in those days, and it said, if Queen's Park beat Cowdenbeath at Central Park on Saturday, they'll win the league. They'll be presented with the third division trophy. It's the third division. They were playing in then, and I thought that's quite an amazing thing to go and see Queen's Park, such a massively historic club, really, you know, at the core of the history of Scottish football. We're going to talk about that, Queen's Park, but to see them lifting a domestic trophy would be quite the thing, you know. We didn't know. We didn't know. How could we know in 10, 12 years' time Rangers would be battling it out with Queen's Park for that third division title, and we'd bump into Cowdenbeath as well on our way up there. But it's a wee patronising day out as it was then for me and my mate. So we went along to see Queen's Park winning the third division. We're in that bit of terrace, and I don't know, I've not been to Central Park for ages up at Cowdenbeath, but that bit of terrace and it's facing their wee main stand. And it was a beautiful day. Saw Queen's Park lifting the trophy, but we seemed to exit out the main stand opposite for some reason, and that was you went exit through the gift shop type scenario. And as we walked out with all the supporters of both clubs, there was a crowd waiting outside. There's a queue, people, a big crowd, almost as big as the crowd that had been in watching the football, waiting to get in. And we're like, look, what are you up? And then we realised, I don't know if it's still the same scenario at Central Park, Cowdenbeath just now, but the stock car racing. They host the stock car racing at Central Park, and it must have been starting. Does it kick off? You call it with stock car racing? Probably not. Starting at 5 or 5:30 or something like that. So these people are waiting, and we're walking past going, stock car racing? God, bunch of weirdos. And they're looking at us going, Cowdenbeath against Queen's Park in the third division. Aye, really weirdos, pal, really weirdos. But it's added to this very busy kind of schedule idea about Hampden, the National Stadium. There's concerts going on, isn't there, just now? I know, was it Pink or the Foo Fighters definitely played Hampden. And we've then got Queen's Park don't actually play. They've become this corporate monster. They finally sold Hampden, big Hampden, major Hampden, morer Hampden as opposed to lesser Hampden. They sold it to the SFA a few years ago, but somehow they're back in there now. And I'm not trying to make trouble. I'm not trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be there, we should. We're the ones causing the trouble here. We're being literally accommodated, literally and metaphorically. So no slagging for Queen's Park. They were in there, they got it organised, they got that sorted out. It's your spiritual home anyway, let's be honest. But every time I've seen Rangers recently at Hampden, and I have seen us quite a lot recently at Hampden, it's a point I was making in the Jersnet podcast I was doing towards the end of the season. We might not be winning the silverware that we want to, but at least we're getting, 2 successive League Cup finals. Not done that since 2012, and that's us last season. We got to all the semi-finals and finals in the major cup competitions at Hampden. And during those trips to Hampden, I also go see Scotland at home every now and then. I would notice Lesser Hampden getting more and more developed, more built up. They're turning it into this wee stadium that Queen's Park are moving into, but I don't know what's happened. I've not looked into that as to why Queen's Park aren't ready to move in there next season. They're going to use Big Hampden, got these concerts there, and I just feel, are we going to be, is it There Goes My Hero? It's Charlie Miller, the man who put the ball in for Brian Laudrup, that great night at Tannadice back in 1997. Dave Grohl, can you give us a drum roll? And we'll take it, because he did play drums for Nirvana. You know what I mean? I know the music history stuff, I know. You do the drum roll, and Charlie can do the half-time draw, the tombola draw. It's all mixed up in my head, and I feel as if we'll probably be kicking off at 12:30 a game that's live on Sky, and then we'll have to sneak out the stadium while Queen's Park are waiting to come in to play a game at 3 o'clock. I don't really feel that for some reason. I thought that might be an entertaining start to the video, but it does sum up how I'm feeling about this. Queen's Park, of course, got a tiny support, but I'd like to see them get big again. I'm quite interested in Queen's Park. I think in the fact that they've won the Scottish Cup the most times after Rangers and Celtic. No, they've won the Scottish Cup more times than Aberdeen, more times than Hearts and all that, but they've only, I think the last time they got to the final was 1900 or something. That's quite an amazing history. Queen's Park, they just turned 157, I think, a few days ago, the Spiders, and I think they've got a massive support on their doorstep. I'm getting distracted here, but what the hell is there to talk about? There's absolutely zero signings going on. I'm going to rant and rave about the European Championships, but the main thing to talk about is Hampden, and I didn't realise there's a book called Played in Glasgow. It's by a guy called Jed O'Brien, who you should look up on Twitter. Absolute, what a genius. Football historian, Glasgow, Scottish football historian. I think he's from down south, I think, originally, but he wrote this book. It's part of a Played In series. There's one about Manchester, I think maybe London as well, edited by the football grounds guru that is Simon Inglis. But it's all about all the sporting venues in Glasgow, and I'm talking swimming pools, bowling greens, tennis courts, everything. ice rinks. Oh, it's a really interesting book, as well as all the football stuff. And it's the first and only place I've ever seen this mentioned. The third Lanark, like Cathkin Park, which is the second Hampden, just down the hill, that old stadium across from Branston Station, just down the hill from Hampden, where third Lanark used to play. Third Lanark used to be a Jewish support. There's quite a lot of Scottish Jewish people would follow third Lanark because, I'm pig ignorant here, but I think on the Sabbath, so the Saturday, that's the Jewish day of rest. I think if you're particularly observant, you don't use public transport. So the Jewish communities, kind of Newton Mearns, that kind of area south of Glasgow, the idea was that they could actually walk to the game, on a Saturday if they were going to see third Lanark. So the Rangers, Protestant, Celtic, Catholic. You've got third Lanark, obviously Jewish already, although they're not going to go anywhere. But there's always a chance they'll come back. Why don't we get the massive Scottish Asian community right in the doorstep of Queen's Park? Just get them involved. Get them. I did an article for 442 years ago with Ronnie Esplin. We did an article about guys of Pakistani and Indian heritage who loved Rangers and Celtic, or Rangers or Celtic, played a lot of football. The lust for football in that community is absolutely huge. We should get them along, because that be Jewish, Catholic, Protestant. That's Christian, obviously, but Catholic, Protestant, and then we should get the Asian community involved. Partick Thistle, we could all hate Partick Thistle together because they're obviously heathens. They're pretentious West End university type ideas about, I'm an atheist and all that kind of stuff. Just totally woke. We could all get ripped into them, unite behind that. And I think if Clyde ever come back to Glasgow, the Bully Wee, the Buddha Wee, or something, I don't know, we could change it into Jainism or something. They could get them into something and get another community behind them. I think the more religion and sectarian divides you have involved in Glasgow football, the healthier it will be. But the whole point is, Rangers. Oh, by the way, this is welcome to your FATEC European Championships quarterfinals and semi-finals reaction pod, coming to you in association with the Gersnet microphone and with Cafe India at Great Western Road. In Glasgow. It's where Black Rooster used to be. If you're going down to Volcano or something like that, just nip into Cafe India, Great Western Road. It's open till 1 o'clock in the morning through the week, and then 2 o'clock in the morning at the weekends. Large donor. Ask for everything on, and they'll know that I sent you. You'll get a discount because it's only me that goes in and says everything on, please, instead of salad and sauce, because I'm so pretentious that I think people in Glasgow will still give me my kebab if I use the same language I used when I was ordering kebabs in Ardrossan 35 years ago. So, the big news is that Rangers are almost certainly going to be playing at Hampden. Don't quote us. As opposed to Murrayfield, coming to an arrangement with the SFA, and it's been a bit embarrassing. It's not good, and I'm still, I have to be honest, stuck in the middle of reaction, how to react to this. It's embarrassing. Any uncertainty, physical or otherwise, just will cause problems throughout the club. And John Bennett, in his statement today, was making a point of apologising to sponsors as well. And that's quite a thing. And I get that. It's easy for me. It's an inconvenience. I like going to Hampden. So I go there quite a lot anyway. Even if Rangers don't get there, I'll probably go and see at least a couple of Scotland games a season. I've been footballology. The footballology app's got it tells you how many. You can look up all your stats and it tells you how many times you've been to various grounds. I've been to Hampden 148 times. That's easily the ground I've been to. Second most after Ibrox, or the most after Ibrox, and I thought, it's going to be well into the the autumn. I think Scotland's Nations League games before another thing that's happening, scheduled to happen at Hampden this season. The pitch was supposed to be getting relayed as well. There's a lot going on there. That it was going to be then before I got to go to my 150th game at Hampden. No, it's going to be middle of August. Probably first week, maybe second week in August, but maybe if we get a League Cup game at home, our European games, obviously we'll have the home legs of them. That's going to be sorted. I could be heading for 200 games at Hampden come the end of the season if Rangers have a good season, but the Copeland Road doesn't he? I get it's slightly inconvenient for me, in that it takes more time to get to than Ibrox, but not a lot. It's no problem for me. I'm obviously Rangers obsessed. Rangers does mean a lot to me. And maybe I'm just kidding myself on trying to find somebody else to look down on, but I know there are people, as the Walter Smith quote on the inside of the new home jersey says, it's people that their whole life is Rangers. But I think my whole life is Rangers, but other people, it's all their money. All that, I'm not exactly minted or that, but I'm lucky enough. I don't do away games really, as I'm always talking about. I do Ibrox and Hampden. No, it's only Hampden I'm doing. I but I've got money to do other stuff. This is going to be the last pod be Glasgow for a fortnight. I'm going to go away on holiday. I'd spend my money on other stuff. Other people, they're spending all the spare cash they've got on Rangers. And if you're working in a really tight budget, money is tight for so many people these days, and you're putting your money into a season ticket, you'll have it all priced, what it's going to cost you to go to Ibrox. It needs to be Ibrox you're going to. Go to Hampden, it might be, I know it's still the south side of the city, but it can make a massive difference to people. And also the hassle it's causing supporters, clubs, etc. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And I don't know if we're getting all these signings that aren't arriving yet. All these big name signings that we're looking for, they haven't arrived yet. Perhaps it's because a big selling point of getting big name signings, usually you take them to Auchenhowie, then you take them down to Ibrox, and you just I don't know if, Ross Wilson wasn't big enough to block out the view. Maybe Craig Robertson. I don't know how big these guys are. If they can just get the new sign and bring them down the tunnel and just go, just look to your left a minute. That's what the Copeland. No, don't turn round. No, you don't need to turn round. Bag him. Get the blindfold on. Don't turn round. The Copeland just looks exactly the same as you saw it on the telly. You saw it on the telly during that Europa League run. They need to look round the whole stadium. Let's get you back up that tunnel and get this sorted out. What's that crane doing there, Mr. Robertson? Right, mate. Just move what you're signing or not. I don't know if that's part of it, because showing off your stadium to sponsors, to potential new signings is a big thing. And if we don't have it, It can't. I'm very much it's not a problem to me. So I'm careful when I'm saying this. It's not a problem to me, us going to Hampden. I'm careful if this comes across as being like inconsiderate to other Rangers supporters, but it's taking such a pasting. There's so many Rangers supporters dying to jump on the board's back, just wanting a reason to get folk sacked because we haven't won as many trophies as we're supposed to. And I think there's a lot of OTT criticism. I've got to be honest, I find it kind of interesting as well. I know it's terrible. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just in a good mood because I'm going on my holidays. Maybe it's going to be a different matter when I'm stuck up the back of the Celtic end at Hampden in the middle of November, freezing my nuts off as Rangers toil to get another 0-0 with St Johnstone. But I was mentioning this in the last pod I did last week, when a lot of Celtic fans that have got in touch have taken it the wrong way. I just did a list of other situations I could think of where teams have played their home games at somebody else's stadium. And one of them was Rangers. We went to Hampden 78-79 season, 79-80, when we were basically redeveloping Ibrox to the current configuration. Willie Waddle's master plan, rebuilding Ibrox. I found that quite interesting. So I mentioned the fact that Celtic obviously had played the biggest crowd ever for a European club match, the European club competition, is Celtic against Leeds in 1969-70 European Cup final, European Cup semi-final. Sorry, Celtic won and went through to the final. Celtic played Ajax, I think, there as well. But also, I was talking about Spurs playing at the new Wembley, and they're getting the new Tottenham, the new White Hart Lane built, and Arsenal playing at the old Wembley when they were moving from Highbury to the Emirates. I mentioned a few. When UEFA Cup final used to be home and away, UEFA Cup final was murder for folk moving their home leg of the UEFA Cup final. You had Casino Austria Salzburg doing that in 1994 against Inter. They played it at the Prater Stadium, the Ernst Happel Stadium. That's the National Stadium in Vienna. Rangers and Celtic have both played Rapid Vienna, who play at the Gerard Hanapi Stadium. We've both played them at the Prater, the Ernst Happel, sorry, that same national stadium in Vienna. Juventus, they played the home leg of their 1995 UEFA Cup final against Parma. They played the home leg at the San Siro, Milan. They got 80,000 there because they hated the Stadio delle Alpi, where they played the 1993, the home leg of the 1993 UEFA Cup final against Juventus, for an amazing record, European finals in the 90s, just being there all the time, and one or t'other. And they played against Borussia Dortmund in the 1993 UEFA Cup final at Dele Alpi, and in 1990 UEFA Cup final they played against Fiorentina at the old Stadio Comunale, which is now solely Torino's stadium. So they've played the home leg of a European final at like 3 different stadiums. Juventus, Borussia Mönchengladbach. They played the '79 UEFA Cup final home leg at the Rheinstadion, which is Dusseldorf. They played a lot of big European games at Fortuna Dusseldorf's bigger ground. It's bigger than the Bokelberg, the ground they played at in those days. AZ 67 Alkmaar, as were known then, back in 1981. They played Ipswich Town home leg of their UEFA Cup final at the Olympic Stadium, Amsterdam, which itself was a stadium that Ajax borrowed from their old De Meer Stadium when they were playing big European games. I was just trying to cite a whole lot of examples. Celtic played the whole of the 93-94 season at Hampden while they were redeveloping Parkhead a generation after we had completely redeveloped Ibrox. So I wasn't having a go at all, So I'm just joking. It's a wee joke, and these things were all planned. These were all agreed ahead of time. Rangers have mucked up here big time. I still don't know. I haven't got down with the word on the street about whether that's why James Bisgrove left. I feel as if, maybe if he'd left to take over as a commercial manager at Albion Rovers, he's definitely just trying to get out of it. He's definitely just trying to kind of get out of the way. But if Saudi Arabia is maybe, there's other reasons for going over there with the money involved and Bisgrove's lust for it. But so I'm not as bothered as maybe I should be, but I'm very, very aware, recognising the fact that it's a massive problem for other Rangers supporters, and it's not a good look at all. It's going to cause us a lot of problems. I would imagine it's already causes a lot of problems. The big thing for me is, where are you going to go? How's it going to work? That's what I'm quite interested in. I'll buy bags of first dibs, injections for life, keys, honours, doublers. I want a top tier. I'm in the main stand. I'm in the main stand, the main stand front, above the enclosure. So I want to be up. I think the equivalent of that has got to be the top tier in the main stand at Hampden. That's a great. I've been in the wings, the wee wings that kind of lips of that top tier that come over like the Celtic end or the Rangers end. And I'm going to call them that for this, the West Terrace or the West Stand, the East Stand. But I've been in the wings of them. And that's a great view as well up there, but I was in the middle bit for that game again. I saw Scotland beating Spain. The last team to beat Spain in the European Championships, Scotland, 2-0, wasn't the qualifiers. I was there. I sat in the middle of that, right in the middle of it in the halfway line. What a view. It just looks totally different altogether. So our bags have been up there because it's exactly the same thing. I was at the club deck because it's quite high. There's no 3-tier stand at Hampden. So where's the club deck going to go? I bet they get that bit. They're going to get that bit, aren't they? I'm going to be probably up the back of the main stand. If I end up the back, the Copeland Road is the Rangers end. So the Rangers end at Hampden, so the whole Copeland Road should be going. Or should they be getting the best seats in the house because they're the ones that have been most inconvenienced? Well, what will be inconvenienced? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. But the thing that really annoys me about Hampden is I never got to the North Stand. All the Rangers supporters. It was on the telly recently. 1982 Scottish Cup final. My first Scottish Cup final. Get gubbed 4-1 after extra time against Aberdeen. The old North Stand at the top of the North Enclosure, what is now the North Stand. It was the last to go up when they originally built Hampden and the first to come down. I never got in there. It's the only bit of the old Hampden that I never got in. It was down by the 1983 Cup final when we were only losing 1-0 to Aberdeen. It was gone by that point in time. I never got up there at all, and I've always thought maybe, it's a sponsors bit above the North Stand as it is just now at Hampden, which used to just be the North Enclosure. They just resurfaced, reprofiled the old terrace near the North Enclosure. There's a wee sponsors bit, is it the Sky Lounge or something they call it? It's just maybe holds maybe 100 folk or 200 folk or something like that up there. It's usually kind of big hospitality going on up there, folk with suits, ties and whatever. But if I could just get shoved up there, if I get relocated up there, that'd be great. I would claim that as finally having been in the North Stand. It's not going to happen like that at all. So it's an inconvenience. If you're in the Celtic end or the Rangers end at Ibrox and you're automatically getting put there at Hampden, that's what you're a lot further away from the pitch. I love Hampden. I love the feel of the place. I love the history of the place. But a lot of the reason for that is because we don't play league games. We played Queen's Park in the 2 league games I've seen us playing at Hampden. That was history in itself. But it's pretty inconvenient. Queen's Park, of course, were formed 5 years before Rangers, and just under 5 years after they were formed. Queen's Park were formed, it was 157 years ago this month. Happy birthday to them. the Rangers were formed, and just over 5 years after Queen's Park were formed, their 11 players for the first ever official Scottish national team played against England at the West of Scotland Cricket Ground, Hamilton Crescent. 5 years later, Rangers played their first Scottish Cup final there, and they played against England, the first ever official international football match ever played in the history of world international football. Scotland against England. We drew 0-0, and I just feel as if everything that's happened with the England national team just now, everything that's throughout history that's happened to the English national team, is in a kind of trickle down, trickle up effect with the Scotland national team. Even the way we run more leagues and what have you, Scotland renaming the third division and is League Two and League One and Championship and Premiership. That's just doing that after the way the English have done. So I've had a massive interest in the European Championships. Okay, I should talk to you about Rangers stuff mostly. What is there to talk about with Rangers? Sorry, right now, what is there to talk about with Rangers? We've talked about Hampden. That's the main thing that's going on. There is nothing going on transfer-wise. The Rangers review, that's out there. I'm a person who does more comment and opinion. I'm totally clueless with a lot of stuff. So there's plenty of news, Rangers news outlets out there, but the B team pumped Blackpool. Take that, Stanley Matthews. John Gregg on that documentary saying, it was great to see Stanley Matthews winning the FA Cup with Blackpool in 1950. The Rangers get revenge there, John. The B team beat them 6-1, I think. At 0-0, we stand the first team are away to their training camp. And 0-0 with Standard Liège behind closed doors. Thanks for nothing. Twice we've played Standard Liège behind closed doors this decade. I've got another wee thing, obviously quite retentive. I've got a thing on. I like to see all the winners of European trophies, all the finalists, people that team played in the finals of European trophies. Standard Liège lost to Barcelona in the Nou Camp in the Cup Winners' Cup final 10 years after we won the Cup Winners' Cup in the Nou Camp. So Standard Liège, one of the few that I haven't seen. There's about 100 odd, and I've seen 70 odd. Standard Liège, one of the few I haven't seen in the flesh. So we draw them, don't we, in the COVID season. Play at Ibrox behind closed doors. Sensational games, home and away with Standard Liège, and then that's us playing them again behind closed doors, even though COVID's on the way out. So that's quite annoying over in this Dutch training camp. Drew 0-0. Apparently everybody played. A total different team in the second half of the first team. Robbie McCrory has been sold to Kilmarnock. There's add-ons. We're looking for $500,000. Didn't get that. Good luck to Robbie. It's good to see him going to a solid club under a decent manager, and hopefully he doesn't come back to haunt us. But all the very best to him. He's been very patient, the lad, and it's good to see him getting a move. Apparently, if he gets sold on, if he does the business at Kilmarnock and he's sold on, we'll get a cut of that. I think that's fair enough. We're interested in Lennon Miller of Motherwell. I think everybody's interested in Lennon Miller of Motherwell, 17-year-old. This is undercoat stuff. I'm more into the Dulux, the Artex, and the Dulux paint finish. I want to get the big signings in there. Igamani, he's arrived. He officially signed since the last time I spoke to you. And yeah, one thing the last time I spoke to you, I said that the 1st of July was when the transfer window opened in Saudi Arabia. I don't know where the hell I got that, and that's completely wrong. It's the 17th of July, it's next Wednesday. So perhaps that is when things are going to start to kick in. That's going to be the first big one where we get outgoings. If these rumours about Tav and about Goldson are true, if we get some crazy money in for them, then that'd be absolutely fine. Maybe that's when things will start to move on the transfer front. Meantime, it's been the European Championships. It is the summertime. That's all I've been interested in. And it's been really good. All that's really there for you to actually to get a hold of, to grasp, because everything else has just been up in the air with Rangers. But I couldn't do you a reaction after the quarterfinals because I didn't see two of the quarterfinals. I didn't see half of the quarterfinals. I was at a wedding on Saturday. I'm not going to mention the people, but all the best. They know who they are. All the very best to them. I don't want them getting abuse. Anybody that knows the abuse I've been getting on here, I don't think I've been called a hun quite a lot of times, and sometimes it's quite a friendly way. But since the amount of comments I've had to delete since I started doing this podcast, it's quite hilarious. But I was at a beautiful wedding on Saturday, so I saw one of the boys at the table we sat at had the phone out, and we were watching the penalties. England against Switzerland. We watched the penalties, so it wasn't totally ignorant, but that was very good. I was quite happy to see England go through. I didn't see anything of the Dutch game against Turkey. I watched the two games the previous day and the Friday. Germany against Spain, really good, really intense, a lot of tactical stuff. Spain proving that they've got a bit of grit about them as well. They're ready to go. They're looking the business. Spain, obviously everybody's favourites for the final on Sunday now. But that was an intense game. Germany, it's quite weird for them to be beaten in quarterfinals in home soil. But they didn't do it. The hosts who cuffed Scotland didn't prove to be the fantastic team I thought they were when they put 5 past Scotland. And I was so glad that France beat Portugal. Terrible game that night. France against Portugal went to penalties. So glad to see Ronaldo getting put out. As I say, I don't want to get too down about Ronaldo, but the rumours about his private life, things he's done in the past, are really, you don't want to get into it. It's not very nice stuff, but it's definitely put a cloud. I think previously I enjoyed the pantomime with Ronaldo. Now I instinctively can't stand the guy. So yeah, I was quite happy to see them go out. Portugal, they weren't particularly entertaining. And that left us with the 2 quarters didn't see. So we get the semi-finals this week. Tuesday night, Spain looking fantastic for 25 minutes in particular. It's enough to see them come back to take the down to an early goal to the French, and they come out and they beat them 2-1. And the following night, England did exactly the same. They went a goal down early doors to the Netherlands. And although England took a lot longer to get their second goal, they come back pretty much straight away with an equaliser against the Dutch and eventually wore the Dutch down and got their winner. The latest ever normal time winner in a European Championship semi-final was one of the stats I heard on 5 Live today from Ollie Watkins. What a goal it was too in the Westfalen. You know about VAR helping you out with a penalty in the Westfalen. Borussia Dortmund, absolutely fantastic that night. And Tav, Ryan Kent, Lundstrom. Maybe if they'd been playing for England last night, it would all have been done early doors within the first hour, like it was for Rangers back in 2021, 2022. We played in that stadium. Jude Bellingham and guy who played guy who played last night as well, Daniel Mallon. They played in that game last night. They also played against Rangers that night, and then they scored the goals at Ibrox against us. Stop talking about Rangers. We're talking about Euros, Alec. England went through 2-1, the same as Spain did the previous night, but England are shite and Gareth Southgate's a joke. But Spain are absolutely phenomenal, and that's what it's all about. I don't really know where to start with how annoyed I am at the press Gareth Southgate is getting. Just a wee start for you. This has nothing to do with it. I'm shooting off on a tangent again. We're talking about Euros. I should have announced them properly. This final we've got on Sunday, Spain against England. First time England have ever been in a final on foreign soil. Absolutely unbelievable. Alvaro Morata, he could join Michel Platini, Gerd Muller, Ruud Gullit and Marco van Basten on this very short elite list of guys who've scored in the final of the Euros and the final of the Champions League, or European Cup, as it was for some of them. He could join an even more elite list, and just him and Gerd Muller will have done it at the same stadium. Gerd Muller scored for Bayern Munich 1974 European Cup final replay, only European Cup final to go to a replay. Champions League kids, same thing. He scored in the final of that against Atletico Madrid, who Morata plays for. You know what I mean? That behind me is a bag, Atletico Madrid bag for their shop. I was over there buying lots of Atletico Madrid stuff. He scored against Atletico Madrid in the final of the European Cup 1974 at the Heysel Stadium, where he'd scored 2 goals for Germany when they won the final of the Euros against the Soviet Union 2 years earlier, 1972. Morata scored what turned out to be a consolation goal for Juventus against Barcelona in the 2015 Champions League final. Barcelona beating Juve 3-1 at the Olympic Stadium, Berlin. That's where the final's being played on Sunday. Only thing I would say is I love my Gerd Muller. I love Der Bomber, so I have to point out that Gerdy also scored in the World Cup final. And Champions League final, or European Cup final as it was then, Euros final and the World Cup final. He won them all. Morata lost the European Cup final when he was playing with Juventus in 2015. But it would be quite an achievement. Luke Shaw, who come on at half time last night, won the second half last night. That's one of these tactical changes that apparently Gareth Southgate doesn't make. Trippier really good going down that side, but he's naturally right-footed. So we got Luke Shaw on finally back to fitness, and he was able to put in better. The idea was he could put in better crosses, but of course the Dutch changed it up as well, and somehow because England didn't win 5-0 in the second half, that was him getting out-thought. Gareth Southgate, as far as I can see, he drew the first half and won the second half, so it seemed to work. But Luke Shaw could join Fernando Torres as the only guy to score in successive finals of not the European Championship finals. Like Scotland would have qualified for the last two, but the actual final. Torres scoring in the 2008 and 2012 finals when Spain became the only country to win the Euros twice in a row, win two successive Euros. England are hoping to avoid becoming the first nation to lose the final of the Euros two successive occasions. They're hoping to do the same as Germany did. Germany did it twice, losing the final and then winning the following final. Germany did this 76. And if you're looking up these stats, checking my stats, you see that a Muller scored for Germany in the 76 European Championship final. That's Dieter Muller of Cologne, who scored against Rangers at Ibrox when we were redeveloping Ibrox when parts of the stadium were closed against us in the European Cup quarter-final 1978-79. That's big Dieter Muller, different player. But he's Luke Shaw could score two in a row. But England are trying to do the same as Germany did. They lost the final in 76 and then they won it in Euro 1980 and they lost the final in 92. Then they won the final Euro 96 and I was there. I was at that one. I've told you that before. It's quite... Spain could become the first nation to win it 4 times. This is their 5th final. No, Germany have played in the final 6 times, but Germany lost 3 of those finals. So Spain could become the first country to win the Euros 4 times. And I remember, although they won the Euros in 1964, Spain, so I wasn't born until 69, but they won the Euros in 1964 at a time when it was a lot of Cold War stuff was going on. Teams were withdrawing and what have you. The Euros, it was only the 2nd Euros ever. It didn't have the same cachet as the World Cup. Not everybody was entering it. They played the semi-final and the final at the Bernabeu. So it was a kind of... It wasn't seen as a great achievement when Spain won it in 64. It was kind of pushed back into the dark annals of history. But as I was growing up, Spain were one of these... Spain and France were these kind of countries who had great players, had great domestic leagues, great football history, great club sides. You know, the French, you can't hardly get to a European final in the club scene either. But the great players that seem to be vastly underachieving all the time. And then just, France won. They got to the World Cup semi-final in 82. They won Euro 84 on home soil with Platini being absolutely sensational. They got to the 86 World Cup semi-final. It kind of laid the basis for what then happened. They brought about Clairefontaine, etc. And then they win the World Cup in 1998. First time they'd ever been in the World Cup final. Then they've lost the final 2006, lost the final 2018. They won it again. So they won it in 2018, lost the final in 2022. It's just eventually happened. They arrived. And this is one of the great things I love about being an old guy like myself. You get to see things that were always at, why is this not happening? Why has this never happened? These big long waits suddenly coming to an end. And same thing happened with Spain. They just arrived. This team, the Barcelona kind of core of it, 2008 in the Euros, winning their 2nd major trophy ever. They lost the final in 84 of the Euros to France, but you could never get to a World Cup final or anything like that. They were a quarter-final team at best. Great underachievers all the time. Dark horses, underachievers, dark horses, underachievers. 2008 Euros, 2010 win the World Cup, 2012 win the Euros, and it's great to see them getting back into another final since that. You worried if it was just a one-off, a magical one-off. What a period. Utterly amazing for Spain to win 3 straight major trophies, and the way they did it, the football was lovely. You worried maybe that was it, just this great generation, and it all just would go back to the same level with them losing the quarterfinals of the last Euros on penalties to Italy. But no, semi-final it was, sorry. But they're back in a final again, and it's just that's good. They've generally moved on, that mindset. But England are doing the same thing. People don't. That's the thing. I'm getting to see England. I grew up my whole life. Teams. The thing I'm hearing this week is Gareth Southgate should be doing much better with the players he has. The football's boring. He's lucky because of the side of the draw they're in, and it's all nonsense. I think it's a kind of Sky generation thing. People are talking about how a better manager, if it was Guardiola, if it was Klopp, if it was Ancelotti, they'd get much more out of this pool of players than Southgate is. And that's the whole point. It's not them, because their club football will always, at that end of club football, always have far more money, and far more involvement. International football, you only get to play together so often. It's rarely you get to play so many games together, as a team who gets to the final of a major competition. So the players can't gel the same way. You can't go out and buy somebody to fill in a position that you're struggling in. So this whole accusation, he's putting square pegs in round holes, or vice versa. They've got to, because that's what you do at international football. You can't just go out and buy somebody of the same level to put in a position you're struggling with. It doesn't work like that. I think the idea is that Spain are sensational, they're playing great football, and they're going to be absolutely. But De La Fuente, the Spanish manager, he managed. The slagging Southgate as if he's some sort of school teacher. This is why it bothers me, because it was like what happened with Craig Brown. And then we got in Bertie Vogts after that. He was a disaster. But he was a name, wasn't he? Only man to win the Euros as a player and a manager. Not for us, he didn't he? But I think what's happened with Southgate is it's kind of like he managed under 21s and he's trying to take that into the England for the full team, and that's just, he's like a school team. It's just not good enough. He was manager of Middlesbrough for about 3 years, I think. So that's quite a big job. But apart from that, De La Fuente, who's the manager of this Spain team that are going to sweep England aside, he hasn't managed a single team you've ever heard of. Well, Alaves. I think he managed Alaves when they were in the third division, and he lasted 3 months. It's all been reserve teams, and he's older than Southgate, as far as I can see. He's always ever managed his reserve teams. I think one kind of obscure Spanish team that was in the regional leagues at the time. He's managed the Spain, I think, 3 or 4 youth levels or underage levels of the Spain men's national team, and then that's what's got him into the job here. So it's exact. If anything, Southgate's more of a kind of personality, established manager than the Spain manager, but I don't see him getting any kind of credit for that. This whole thing about he was lucky with the side of the draw they were on. England finished top of their group by scoring 2 goals, but they finished top of their bloody group. The reason Belgium went out so early is because they couldn't finish top of their group. France couldn't finish top of their group. That's why they ended up on that side of the draw, getting put out by France and then by Spain. And that's the idea that, I mean, Spain's side of the draw seems to be, there's no such thing as luck. You've got to beat who's in front of you. And England beat Switzerland, who put out Italy, the holders, put them out handily as well. Spain, I think, who did they beat? Well, they got Georgia. They got the team that finished 4th in their qualifying group, qualifying through the same loophole, the same Nations League 3rd Division loophole that got Scotland into the Euro 2020. Georgia end up in a team that they beat 7-1, I think, and 3-1 in the qualifiers. Spain get them in the last 16. And then they get the worst Germany on their worst run in finals football in their entire history. Out in the group stage of 2 tournaments recently. They haven't been in a final for 10 years now. That's mental for Germany, absolutely terrible. So they get the worst Germany team of all time. They then play France, who've suddenly forgot how to attack. Talk about England being boring. The way France, I've watched France's games this Euros, they've been terrible. They've been a massive disappointment. This idea that the players Southgate have got is a golden generation, absolutely amazing. It's terrible what he's doing with them. I watched England teams my entire life. This is what I'm talking about by being an old man and getting to see stuff happen. It's actually quite exciting because it's changing history. Even before England won the World Cup in '66, the only tournament they've ever won, they've only been to 3 finals. They've only been to the final of 3 major competitions, and Southgate has been the manager for 2 of them, and he's getting 0 credit. But even before '66, when they won the World Cup at home, Stanley Matthews, who was a Ballon d'Or, as a European Footballer of the Year. Is any Ballon d'Or, any European Footballers of the Year in that current England team? No. And they get horsed, they get embarrassed in the couple of World Cups they tried in the 50s. You had the few World Cups they tried in the 50s. You had likes of Michael Owen, Ballon d'Or. Kevin Keegan, double Ballon d'Or. Won the European Footballer of the Year twice in the trot. Trevor Francis scoring a winner in the European Cup final, and Harry Kane is playing for Bayern Munich, and Jude Bellingham's playing for Real Madrid. Laurie Cunningham played for Real Madrid. Trevor Francis was playing in Italy. David Platt was playing for Juventus and stuff like that. They've all these teams, all these players through the years. You had Terry McDermott scored in the European Cup final, as in the Champions League final. Phil Neal scored in 2 separate European Cup finals for Liverpool. Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, both scored in the Champions League final. Both won, I think, both twice. They both played in 2 Champions League finals. 1 win, 1 loss between them. You've got Foden and what have you that's won the European Cup, or the Champions League as it is now with Man City, and Bellingham obviously was part of that Real Madrid team. I didn't see any of them scoring in the final or what have you. I think the team of Gary Lineker, they did get to the semi-final of Italia 90. Gary Lineker had been top scorer in the 86 World Cup, but didn't he go on to get to a final? And Harry Kane, top scorer in the 2018 World Cup. He's now got himself to a final under Gareth Southgate. I find it unbelievable the lack of recognition that Gareth Southgate is getting. The football was boring. The football was really dull as ditch. What, he's getting beer thrown at him. He's getting plastic glasses of beer thrown at him by the supporters after that 0-0 with Slovenia, which meant they went through top of the group. I discussed this in the last pod. Italy 1982, terrible, terrible. Scored 2 goals, same thing. Absolutely awful opening to the 82 World Cup, and just only really took off in that game, famous game against Brazil. They peaked when they had to. Portugal 2016 European champions. 3 draws. They drew all, including the draw against Iceland, to eventually put England out. This is just before Southgate took over after the Sam Allardyce intervention. The Netherlands in '88, fantastic team, no Hullet and Van Basten. They lost to the Soviet Union. I think was it their first game. And teams don't go through winning every game. It's very rare. Now, this Spanish team are the first team ever to win 6 successive games at the Euros, 6 straight games at the finals of the European Championships. A lot of that's to do with the fact that in 2016 they introduced a last 16. There's more rounds now. Fantastic. But football is absolute. You get teams that are great, sensational teams that don't win. The Hungary team of '54, the Golden Squad, the Magical Magyars of 1954, 2-0 up in the final, hadn't lost a game for 2.5 years. They lost 1 game in 6 years, and it was the final of the World Cup, in which they were 2-0 up after 8 minutes. To the Germans, the Dutch team famously of '74, and then to a lesser extent '78, they were a cracking side. No, the Germans came. Germany who had lost to the East Germans in that World Cup in '74, seen as more prosaic and what have you. They were absolutely sensational 2 years earlier in the European Championships when they won that, beating the Soviet Union in that final in Brussels. But they do the business. They know how to get there. They know how to win the thing. I think with England, this is only the 3rd final they've ever been in. And as I say, Gareth Southgate's the first time they've been in a final on foreign soil. It's the first time they've been in a final outside Wembley. Never mind outside Britain, outside London. It's Wembley. Old Wembley, they won the World Cup '66. New Wembley, they got to the final Euro 2020. And their players immediately took racist abuse because they lost on penalties to Italy, who are just raised to win tournaments. It's absolutely, it's ridiculous. But it seems like they want to, and this is why I think it gets me, because it chimes with both Rangers and Scotland. This thing of the minute you can walk, you need to start running. Or the minute you stop crawling, you need to run faster than everybody else. And I think it's because it brings in a lot of tourists, a lot of people who don't really get what is required to win football. That they would call themselves purists. They want to be entertaining football. They're tourists. Usually anybody who thinks like expansive football, it's got to be dazzling and all that. I'm just a bit of a purist. No, you're a tourist, because if you can't appreciate it, football, really crudely is broken down into 3 different compartments. You've got your defending, you've got your midfield, you get your attack. It's you want to swirl them all up and make them all interdependent in each other and all going towards the same thing. But when you come from a country that has never got to a final outside its own borders, to start getting fussy about the style, it's not as if England are cheating. It's not as if they're going to put the boot in. There's talk about them being lucky last night as well. The penalty, I thought it was a penalty. Giggs and he studs up, just because he scored them free, so I'm not going to back him up. I think it's the VAR thing. The reaction to VAR these days is also endemic of this kind of spoilt Wayne attitude, which I think, maybe it's just a bitter old man talking. People don't want there to be rules. This whole thing, how can you be offside by a toenail? You can be offside by a microbe of foot fungus, of nail fungus, if it's possible to measure down to that level. A rule is a rule. Rules are, by their very nature, viciously pedantic. It's got to start somewhere. It is a rule. People just don't want to. Without the rules of football, you don't have football. It's like I've said before, it's like a sonnet. There's rules about writing, and you get the most beautiful poetry in the world sometimes writing a sonnet. Iambic pentameter, 14 lines, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, rhyme scheme. I'm talking too much, but I think for me, England had the ball cleared off the line. They hit the bar. The Dutch, learned how to stop their midfield overwhelming them in the second half last night, but England didn't crack under that. It's not as if England then get pummeled. They scored the only goal of the second half, England, by substitutions that Southgate made. He brought on Palmer and he brought on Ollie Watkins. This is, and Palmer slots the ball up to Watkins, and it's an assist and a goal for the 2 players that he's brought on. But I'm getting told that was too basic a substitution that doesn't really count. The game against Slovenia he brought on, was it Watkins, and who else did he bring on? No, it was Palmer. Was it Kobe Mainu? I don't know. He brought on another young guy anyway in the game against Slovenia. I mean, he's played two different formations in this tournament as well for somebody who's not tactically fluid. And they looked really good because they were fit. You know, it's a Slovenia team that's run themselves into the ground. Two young boys come on fresh and they're just running at them. So they looked really good. But it's like, why doesn't he play these players for start? Why doesn't he start these guys? Was it Eze? Was it him? I can't remember. But the two players they brought on, and everybody suddenly was like, he should have brought them on for the start. They should have played at the start of the second half, if not get picked straight away. I'm talking about the media were doing this. They started a game in the build-up, in the warm-up games, and they lost at home to Iceland in the game that these guys started. Southgate's not going to come out and say, these are crap, these players aren't good enough, they're shite when they start. You know, he's going to go, yeah, they were great when they come on. And folk, well, why did you not pick them on to start then? And this, I think, is Southgate's greatest tactical innovation. It's not reacting to the idiots that he's got to talk to. You know, I think I've been listening to the 5 Live podcast. I'm not talking about podders. I'm not talking about, you get better insight on podcasts. No, this one, obviously, I'm just a bitter old man ranting at the world, howling at the moon. But BBC and ITV have been horrendous. It's just a desperation to find a reason to be unhappy. Now, fair play to them. I grew up with English commentators continually calling Germany lucky because Germany kept doing the same thing all the time, the opposite of luck, like winning on penalties, grinding their way through to finals and winning. So they're not letting their own players off the hook with what they see again as being lucky and being jammy and what have you. It's the kind of equal opportunities. Xenophobia is a thing, but I don't know what this is. It's no xenophilia. It's not like a love of foreigners, but it's the English media that are telling everybody the Netherlands were unlucky last night. It was never a penalty and blah blah blah. It seems to be a hatred of their own. It's a really weird kind of entitlement, and I can only put it down to a need for controversy. I need to wind people up, which is really toxic. We're not going to get into the results of the general election last week and the fact that I was totally delighted with it. And straight away, the Liberal Democrat Party, 72 seats, Reform got 5. And you would think Reform they'd get more than the 121 that the Tories got. You'd think Reform were the official opposition. You know, they got a big part of the popular vote, but I just find it, they won't be allowed to govern, they won't be allowed to just do normal, boring stuff because too many people want politics to be like football and they want football to be like politics. The coverage is horrendous. And we're looking at, in the 1950s, it's part of the same kind of schadenfreude that affects Scotland. We're looking at in the 1950s when Scotland and England eventually deigned to take part, only because of the Second World War. We just weren't involved in FIFA when it got set up before the Second World War. And then the Second World War, you know, people realised how crap life could be, so let's enjoy football. I will join FIFA. And they had that whole thing, the 1950 home internationals, FIFA just said top 2 teams can qualify for the World Cup. Just let us have our home internationals was going to be the qualifying. And Scotland said only if we win it, and we finished second, and still we were invited to take part in that 1950 World Cup. No, we said we'll stick to our word. And then England did go to that World Cup and get beat off the USA, which, you know, USA reached the semi-finals of the first World Cup, but it was worse than Berwick, you know, for us. What happened with England in that World Cup, total humiliation. We go to our first World Cup 4 years later, and we get beat 7-0 by Uruguay, who won the 1950 World Cup. They were the holders at the time. That's fine, but there was more to it than that. It was just sheer lack of organisation. No Rangers players because we had a tour on. It was just, the attitude's absolutely terrible, and that's kind of hubris. I expected it one day when England were getting to the final of tournaments regularly. I never knew I'd see it again, that their country would go crazy. And I think the fans are going crazy. I think the fans don't really care about the style, you know. And the style is absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned, you know, because winning football and regularly advancing in tournaments to me is the most beautiful thing you can get. But somehow they're getting really fussy about the style and how they're doing it. And it's the media, the way John Murray of the BBC 5 Live talks to Gareth Southgate when he interviews him. He's actually telling him to his face, can't believe you've still managed to get here. And he's summing up of the 5 Live pod that I listened to today, which was the reaction to last night's game. It basically ended with him saying, well, Gareth Southgate was only going to be a success if he won these Euros, and he hasn't won them yet. This is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I fear if Southgate does get hammered, there's a good chance Spain could hammer them on Sunday, although I think there's a good chance England could do the business on Sunday as well. The guy's going to end up getting pilloried for being the only England manager ever to reach two major finals. This final on Sunday is between the only two nations to have won the only World Cup final they've appeared in. You know, like Sweden only appeared in one World Cup final, but they lost it and it was on home soil in the 50s. But I have a thing about tournaments where I worry about the integrity of the competition. You know, I want the Champions League. There's like 23 clubs that won the Champions League. One day, when Rangers get their, football's constantly changing. There might be a situation again where Rangers can be up there with a chance of winning that thing again. I want it still to be a kind of rarefied air. I want it to be every bit as glorious as it was as when Celtic won it in '67. So you need the competition itself, not to have too many. It's I like people to earn their stripes. And Spain won European Championships before they went on and won their World Cup. France, as I say, had won a Euros as well. They got a couple of semi-finals of the World Cup. You build it up and you get to that point, you earn it. And I thought England, having won the World Cup and never reached the final of any other competition since then, before or since, in that World Cup have all been played. They played all the games at Wembley. I felt that was a bit of a stain on the World Cup. I want these teams to come back and prove that they are good. Celtic got to another European Cup final in 1970. That will do them. That's fine. There've been another European final since then, in Seville in 2003. I like teams to prove that it was no fluke that they won it. That it was the competition itself is difficult. It makes it glamorous. It makes it something worth watching when it's on the television. And I hope England go out there and do it on Sunday. But they don't need to prove that Gareth Southgate is a bloody great manager. He's the only man ever to take England to 3 major semi-finals. He's the only man to take them to 2 successive finals. He's the only man to take them to a final on foreign soil, as I keep saying. And yet you'd think he was the worst manager on the planet, and he really isn't. So well done to him, well done to England. Good luck to him in the final. I'm off on holiday, you'll be glad to know. I'm rabbiting far too much. That's an hour I've been talking, and I've not really said anything sensible. I'm off down to England. No, because England, I'm just going to get in there and I'm going to get in the vibe. I'm going to get to a fan part. Go on, Gareth. No, but I feel as if, because with my accent, I'm going to get stabbed. I'll be the first one to get stabbed if England get beat. I'll be watching it in the wee holiday home on the wee telly in there. Just a nice old man style holiday next week. If you see it, probably going to be a fortnight at least before I'm back on here, folks. It is the summer. You're due a break from this kind of patter. If anybody does come on this podcast the next fortnight, it's not me having lost a lot of weight and grown hair. It's one of my lodger house sitters. So Gareth Southgate, I'm looking at one more thing. He reminds me, what's happening with him, as I say, reminds me of what's happening with Craig Brown. If you can't, it was like Craig Brown wasn't sexy enough. He had an amazing record as Scotland manager. The way he qualified for tournaments, like losing 3 goals to qualify for Euro in the qualifying for Euro 96. Nobody had done anything better than him ever before. Andy Roxburgh also qualified for a Euros and a World Cup. He also got slated school teacher. Craig Brown did the same thing, slated school. I was at the press conference. When they beat Latvia in a World Cup qualifying campaign. It was already failing. And Craig, the way he was treated by the media, that it was absolutely disgusting, Craig Brown. It was terrible. I remember, what's his name? Oh, Tanner. I think he was working for Sky at the time, David Tanner. And he was the first one to question him, are you resigning? And Craig went, would you not want to talk about the game first? I can tell you about the game that's just, but no, are you resigning? And then everybody else just piled in. It was a bloodbath, and it's an amazing man, such a lovely man as well, and that was the way he was treated. And I'm seeing the same thing with Gareth Southgate, and we end up, as we got Bertie Vogts in. He was he fitted the profile of what we wanted, and I remember us being 2-0 down to the Faroes in top tier, and although we come back to 2 each, and a Scotland team again, Barry Ferguson, who captained the team at a European final, Paul Lambert was playing in that Scotland team. In fact, did they score the 2 goals in the second half that we got a draw in that game? That's the most humiliating moment in my life, supporting Scotland that game that day. There's just, I think the same thing's happened with England under Gareth Southgate, just not getting the appreciation. You need to be able to build, you need to know what it is you want, you need to know how you're going to get there. And the first thing you do is start getting to finals and start winning stuff, and then you worry about the style. So all the best to England on Sunday. But I just hope it's a great game. That's the main thing. I will be back, I say, maybe a fortnight's time before I'll be back, folks. So enjoy the peace and quiet from me, and hopefully we'll know for definite where Rangers are going to be playing by the time I come back. Cheers, troops.